All right, let's dive right in today. We're looking into something called whisper prompting. You've sent over some really interesting research on this, so let's break it down together, see what we can find. But first, what even is whisper prompting? I mean, the name is kind of catchy, right?
It does have a certain mystery to it. Imagine you're working with, say, an AI artist. You give it a broad prompt, something like, create a scene of a busy city street at night, you know, with neon lights and rain. The AI gives you a first try, but maybe those neon signs are too dim. Or the reflections on the wet pavement just aren't looking realistic enough. That's where whisper prompting comes in. It's not about starting over from scratch. Instead, you give these little suggestions like make the signs brighter and make them flicker, or those reflections on the pavement need to stand out more.
So it's more about working with the AI, guiding it, less about just dictating what you want, kind of like giving feedback to a band. You hear their rough track, and you say the drums could hit harder in the chorus, or maybe add some reverb to the vocals. You wouldn't tell them to just write a whole new song.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because this is how AI learns best. By giving these smaller, specific bits of input, you're helping the AI understand exactly what you want. It's like little mini lessons. It helps get the AI to that desired outcome.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of like how we humans work, right? I mean, we rarely nail things on the first try. We draft, revise, tweak. We just keep refining until it feels right.
That's a great point. Maybe this whisper prompting is just a more efficient way to do that, like to tap into that iterative process, this back and forth we do naturally.
Okay, you've sold me on the idea. Whisper prompting is more than just a catchy name. But a question popped into my mind, and I bet our listeners are wondering this too. Why not just put all those details in the first prompt? Why even bother with the whispering part?
That's a common question.
Yeah.
And the answer is sometimes you don't know exactly what you want. Not until you see something. Think about describing a complex image in your head. You start with a general idea, but as you talk about it, new details come up. Your whole vision changes.
Right, right.
Whisper prompting lets that happen naturally. It's like the creative process isn't always a straight line. Sometimes the AI's first output gives you new ideas, things you hadn't even thought of before.
Yeah, I get that. I've had projects that started one way, but as I worked on them, they kind of took on a life of their own and end up somewhere completely different and usually better. So instead of trying to cram everything into that first prompt, whisper prompting is more about like setting a starting point and then going on a journey with the AI.
Exactly. And it's not about controlling the AI. It's about working together with it. Sometimes the best ideas come from those unexpected turns.
That's a great way to put it. And from what I'm seeing in the research, this goes way beyond just visual art, right?
Absolutely. And that's what's so exciting about this. You can apply these ideas to music, writing, video editing, even game design.
Wow, so we've only scratched the surface here. But before we go further, I want to make sure we're all clear. So, for our listeners, when we say whisper prompting, we're talking about this dynamic back and forth between what we want and what AI can do.
Right.
It's about using those small prompts to guide and refine the AI's results. And in the end, you get a true collaboration.
Yeah, it's about using AI as a creative partner, not just a tool.
So we get the why of whisper prompting, but what about the how? What does this look like when you're actually doing it? The research mentions some steps involved.
Right, starts with that first prompt, that big picture of what you're trying to create.
Mm.
You feed that to the AI, and then, this is important, you got to analyze what it gives you back. Don't just glance at it, really study it. See what works, what needs tweaking. Sometimes the AI's take on things, it can spark a whole new direction. You might not have thought of that yourself.
It's like getting notes back from an editor, right? You don't just check for typos. You see if the whole message is coming across.
Exactly. And once you've spotted those areas that needs work, you craft your whisper prompts. Those are the precise instructions to help the AI refine things. For example, if you're working on music with an AI, you could say, make the bass line pop more in the verses, or give the chorus a more dreamy vibe.
Oh, each whisper is like a nudge, guiding the AI without like micromanaging it.
Exactly. And here's the cool part. This whole whisper prompting thing is all about going back and forth. You give a prompt, see what the AI does, then give another prompt based on that. It's a real collaboration.
Like how some photographers work. They take a bunch of shots, changing the lighting a bit each time, until they get that perfect photo.
Perfect example. And this way of working, back and forth, it means accepting that creativity isn't always straightforward. Sometimes those unexpected turns lead to the best results.
So you gotta let go of that need to control everything, huh? And
So
be open to what happens.
Yeah, and this brings up a big point people get wrong. Whisper prompting isn't about bossing the AI around. It's about recognizing that the AI can be creative too. You're working together to make something amazing. It's like a dance, a conversation.
So it's more than just a technique, it's a whole new way of thinking about AI, not as a servant, but as a creative partner.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, this mindset, this way of solving problems, it's useful outside of AI too.
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. Small tweaks, refining instead of starting over. That can be powerful in other parts of life.
Whoa, you mean like setting small goals, making tiny changes to our habits, almost like whisper prompting ourselves?
Exactly. What if, instead of huge overhauls, we focused on those little consistent changes, those whispers that get us closer to where we want to be?
That's a powerful idea. Like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. Maybe real change comes from those small steps.
And you know what's really fascinating? This whole whisper prompting thing.
Yeah.
It might actually be how we learn as humans too. We're constantly adjusting based on what's around us, growing and evolving. It's like a hidden language of self-improvement.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. Maybe we've been doing this all along without realizing it.
And maybe by, bringing it to the forefront,
Hmm.
by consciously using whisper prompting in our creative work and in our life, we can unlock a whole new level of potential.
This has been incredible. This deep dive into whisper prompting. It's like we've gone down this rabbit hole with possibilities that go way beyond AI. This has really been something else. Whisper prompting, it's not just a technique, it's like a whole new way of thinking about creativity, about working with AI, even about, ourselves.
Yeah, it really is, huh?
So before we wrap things up, let's recap for our listeners. What are the big takeaways about whisper prompting?
Well, first off, remember, it's all about refining, not restarting. You take what the AI gives you first and use those little prompts to guide it along.
Like shaping something together.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing to remember, it's a collaboration, a partnership. You're not the boss of the AI. You're working with it, letting it do its thing.
Finding that balance, right, between what we want and what the AI can bring.
Exactly. And one more important thing, whisper prompting. It embraces that back and forth, that exploration, that constant refining. You don't always have to know the end goal from the beginning. Sometimes the AI surprises you, takes you in a new direction.
It's like an adventure, right?
Yeah. And remember, this whole idea of whisper prompting, those small adjustments, that iterative approach, it works outside of AI too.
Right, we talk about that.
In your writing, your music, your photography even,
Hmm.
even your personal goals.
So as we finish up this deep dive, I have a challenge for our listeners. How can you use whisper prompting in your creative work, in your life? How can you embrace those subtle changes, that collaboration, to create something amazing?
I encourage you to experiment, to play. Don't be afraid to let go a little and see what happens. Whisper your vision into being, one small step at a time.
That's a great way to put it. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep whispering your way to something incredible. If